Narrator voiceover. It was just after 9 a.m. when Elise Gardner stood outside her manager's office, still wearing the same coffee-stained apron from the graveyard shift. Her hands trembled, not from exhaustion, but from fear. Her father, Arlo Gardner, was dying in room 247 at General Hospital, and this was the only week she had to say goodbye. Elise, soft but desperate, Mr. Brennan, I need to take a week off. My dad's in critical condition. The doctor said it could be any day now. Please, I need to be there. Narrator voiceover. Croft Brennan didn't even look up. His eyes scanned the shift schedule like it was the Bible. He flipped a page, jotted something with his cheap plastic pen. Then came the sentence that broke her. Croft, cold, emotionless find. Find coverage or don't bother coming back. Your personal drama isn't my concern. Narrator voiceover. And just like that, Elise wasn't a person anymore. She was a shift to be filled, a body on a schedule. A replaceable name on a time card. Her chest tightened. She couldn't breathe, but she didn't cry. Not yet. Elise whispers to herself, "You'll regret that." Narrator voiceover. For a full 5 seconds, Elise didn't move. Her legs wanted to collapse. Her voice locked in her throat. Somewhere between heartbreak and rage, her entire body froze. Narrator continued. She'd given this diner 3 years of her life. She'd worked Christmas, Thanksgiving, covered for sick coworkers, picked up double shifts when they begged her to. She wasn't just another server. She was the glue that kept this place running when no one else cared. SFX, faint echo of plates clinking, distant laughter from the kitchen. Everything felt distant now, muted, unreal. Narrator. And Croft Brennan, he didn't even care. He was already turning to the next page on the schedule, like she was a name he had just erased with a smudge of ink. Elise. Quiet but firm. I'm done. Narrator. She untied her apron with fingers that shook, not from fear, but fury, dropped it on the counter, and walked through the back door without looking back. Narrator. Low building intensity. She didn't slam the door. She didn't yell. But something inside her snapped. Something irreversible. The kind of break you don't recover from. The kind that builds revolutions. Narrator. Room 247 smelled like disinfectant and slow death. Machines beeped rhythmically, steady, indifferent. Elise sat by the bed, her fingers curled around her father's hand, thin and cold like paper. Narrator. Arlo Gardner was the quiet kind of hero. No medals, no headlines, just a man who raised his daughter alone, clipped coupons, and kept the world from falling apart one spreadsheet at a time. Elise choked up, "Dad, it's okay, I'm here now." Narrator. She wanted to say more, but words are liars in moments like these. They fail. Her voice cracked, her breath hitched. She laid her head gently on his chest, listening for the heartbeat she knew wouldn't last. SFX, long beep, silence. Narrator, low, broken. He died on a Tuesday. No storm outside, no dramatic music, just a quiet man fading into a quiet morning. Narrator continued. But something happened in that silence, a shift, something ancient and powerful, like a wire snapping inside Elise's soul. Narrator with rising energy. They'd taken her job. Now they'd taken her father. And somewhere between the grief and the fury, a seed was planted. Narrator, final line. What does a person do when pain outweighs fear? They stop asking permission and start writing their own rules. Narrator voiceover. The chapel smelled like wilted lilies and wood polish. The kind of place built for goodbye, but too quiet for closure. Arlo Gardner's funeral was exactly the way he lived, modest, unassuming, quiet. Narrator, soft. A neighbor from down the hall showed up, the one who always complained about the TV being too loud. A few coworkers came, most of them still in their office attire, unsure whether to shake hands or say sorry. There was no choir, no eulogy, just a plain wooden casket, a printed photo, a name in gold lettering on a black cloth. Elise internal monologue. They talk like they knew him, but they didn't. Not really. Narrator. Elise sat in the front row, stiff and silent. Her eyes didn't cry anymore. They just stared. Her grief wasn't loud. It was sharp, precise, like glass stuck in her chest. With unease, but even in all that silence, something felt off. A weight in the room that didn't come from death. It came from watching eyes, from 3 men in the back row, men Elise had never seen before. Final beat? They wore suits too expensive for a small-town funeral. They never spoke. They just stood, and they never took their eyes off Elise. Narrator voiceover. They didn't fidget. They didn't whisper. They just stood like shadows in suits, hands folded, eyes sharp. Everything about them felt wrong, not disrespectful, not hostile, but too calm, too present. Narrator, Elise watched them out of the corner of her eye. She had a waitress's instinct trained to read people in seconds. These 3 weren't from here. Their shoes were polished. Their watches expensive. Their silence intentional. Elise internal monologue. Government detectives, or worse, friends he never told me about. Narrator. After the final prayer, people started filing out. Soft murmurs, rustling coats, awkward condolences. Elise stood and walked straight toward them. Narrator. Slow, steady. They didn't flinch, didn't introduce themselves, just nodded. Elise, quiet, steady. Did you know my father? Man 1, calm. We did. Elise. Then why didn't you speak at his funeral? Man number 2, flat tone. Some legacies aren't meant to be spoken in public, Miss Gardner. Narrator, building tension. And with that, they left. No card, no handshake, no explanation. Elise voiceover. It was the first time I realized maybe I didn't know who my father really was, and maybe he never meant for me to. Narrator voiceover. The funeral ended, but the questions didn't. Narrator. As Elise stepped outside into the pale afternoon light, the wind shifted, cold, sharp, and full of something she couldn't name. Not grief, not fear. It was anticipation. Narrator, low, deliberate. Her father was gone. That part was real. The body, the casket, the silence. But those 3 men, they didn't mourn. They studied her. And their words still echoed in her mind. Some legacies aren't meant to be spoken in public. She tried to shake it off. Told herself they were just old colleagues, maybe government types, maybe friends from his mysterious consulting work. But deep down, she knew. Elise internal voice. Whatever Dad was involved in, it didn't end when he died. She went home, sat at his old desk, ran her fingers across the grooves he'd worn into the wood after years of quiet typing. Every drawer locked. Every notebook coded, every folder labeled with cryptic numbers instead of names. Narrator. Building, this wasn't the desk of a retired accountant. This was the workstation of a man who was still, even in death, protecting something. Narrator, hook. You think you know your family? Wait until the government comes knocking. Narrator. 6 days after the funeral, Elise walked back into the diner. Same floors, same fluorescent lights, same grease-stained tiles, but nothing felt the same. Narrator: no one said welcome back. No one offered a hug or even a weak smile. The cook glanced up, then turned away. Penny gave her a nod and a look that screamed, "I'm sorry, but I'm scared too." Narrator: even the air felt different, thicker, charged, like everyone had read a script Elise hadn't seen, and she'd just walked into the middle of Act 2. SFX, the distant hiss of a fryer, forks clinking, someone muttering behind the counter. Narrator: Elise tied her apron, picked up her order pad. Her movements automatic, robotic, but her thoughts, they were racing. Elise internal voice: they're not avoiding me. They're avoiding what they think might be following me. And deep down, she wasn't sure they were wrong. Narrator voiceover: it happened just after 9:20 a.m. The front door opened, not with the usual jingle, but a slow, deliberate creak, and in stepped a man who didn't belong. Narrator: tailored navy suit, leather briefcase, clean-shaven, no hesitation. He wasn't here for coffee. Narrator continued: the diner fell quiet just for a second. Even the fry cook looked up. Penny froze mid-pour. Elise stopped writing an order before she even realized her hand had gone still. Narrator slow: the man scanned the room like he was cataloging it. His eyes landed on her, not with curiosity, with certainty. Man, calm, authoritative: Elise Gardner. Elise startled: yes? Man steps forward: I'm Director Hayes, Treasury Department. Financial Crimes Division, we need to talk. Narrator: Croft Brennan appeared instantly like a weasel smelling smoke. Croft fake pleasant. Is there a problem here? Because Elise's father just passed and she's been a bit emotional lately. Narrator: cold. Hayes didn't flinch. He didn't smile. He looked at Croft like he'd just stepped in something disgusting. Director: there's no problem. Miss Gardner, may I speak with you privately? Narrator, closing. And just like that, the air shifted again. Not fear, not grief, but something Elise hadn't felt in days. Purpose. Narrator, voiceover. Director Hayes didn't take her to an office. He took her to a black government sedan parked behind the diner. Taped to the window was a federal seal. Inside, a briefcase, a file, a truth she wasn't ready for. Narrator: he clicked the case open, pulled out a folder. On the top, bold letters, Arlo Gardner, confidential asset. Elise confused: that's my dad's name. Director Hayes: he worked for us. For over 15 years, Arlo was one of the Treasury Department's most trusted forensic accountants. Deep cover audits, offshore tracing, corporate crime mapping. Narrator: Elise blinked. Her dad? The man who reused tea bags. Who never left the house without checking gas prices first. Hayes, matter of fact. His final assignment was Hartwell Food Services. Narrator, rising tension. Elise felt her stomach twist. Hayes: your father was gathering evidence on Hartwell's tax evasion shell companies and labor fraud. Everything. He was weeks away from finishing the case. Narrator, intense. And just like that, her world flipped. Her minimum wage job wasn't just soul-crushing. It was part of a criminal machine. And her father, he wasn't just dying in a hospital bed. He was executing justice until the very end. Narrator, final beat. Hook. She wasn't just a waitress. She was the daughter of the man who could take down an empire. Narrator voiceover. Elise hadn't been in her father's apartment since the funeral. The air still smelled like black coffee and worn leather. Everything was exactly how he'd left it. Like he might walk in any second, mumbling about grocery discounts and forgetting where he put his glasses. But this time, Elise wasn't there to mourn. She was there to uncover. She started with the desk. It looked harmless, aged wood, chipped corners, a faded coaster stain. But inside, secrets. One drawer at a time, she pulled out spiral notebooks filled with numbers. Not equations, sequences. Patterns, codes. Some were labeled by year, others had initials. None made sense. Narrator. Next came the USB drives, dozens of them, each one labeled in her dad's handwriting. HF01, BTR09, 7X Summit. Elise internal voice, this isn't accounting, this is surveillance. Then she noticed the scuff marks behind the dresser. Dragging it aside, her hands shaking, she found it. A small wall safe, hidden, unopened, untouched. Narrator. Slow, suspenseful. She stared at the keypad. 6 digits. No clue. But Elise knew her father. If he wanted her to find it, he would have made sure she could. Narrator. Voiceover. Elise stared at the keypad. 6 digits. That's all that stood between her and whatever her father had buried behind steel and silence. Narrator. Soft. She tried his birthday first. 060452. Beep. Red light. Narrator. Next, the day he adopted her officially. 031290. Beep. Red light. Narrator. She sat down, took a deep breath, closed her eyes. What mattered most to him? Gentle. Her birthday, his birthday, and one more date, one they never said out loud, the day her mother walked out. She remembered it clearly, how her dad didn't cry, didn't yell, just folded her pajamas and made eggs like everything was fine. Slow, she typed 052385, her birthday, 060452, his, 112191, the day her mom left. She tried different combinations. Then she paused. Elise internal voice. What if it's not about dates, but about the order they shaped our lives? Narrator. Building suspense. 112191 06452 05285. SFX. Soft click. Narrator. Whisper. Green light. Narrator. Final beat. The safe opened, and with it, so did a new chapter of her father's truth. Narrator. Voiceover. The door of the safe creaked open. It wasn't full of cash, no gold bars, no letters of goodbye. Narrator. Just a single envelope. Worn edges. Her name written in his handwriting, careful block letters like he used on birthday cards. Narrator. Soft. Inside a folded sheet of paper. No explanations, just 24 lines. Each line a string of letters and numbers, each one labeled with a company name. Narrator. Line 17. Hartwell Food Services. Next to it, access key. 7DX9FT3R1BV04H. Narrator. Crypto wallets. Encrypted locations. A map not to money, but to evidence. Evidence of everything. Narrator. Tax evasion. Wage theft. Offshore laundering. Shell companies. 8 years of buried crimes hidden in blockchain and locked behind these keys. Elise internal voice. He didn't leave me an inheritance. He left me a weapon. Narrator. Final beat. Hook Arlo Gardner didn't die with a secret. He died with a strategy. And now, Elise held the trigger. Narrator voiceover. The codes sat in her hand like they weighed 50 pounds, not because they were heavy, but because they meant something terrifying: power. Narrator steady, Elise knew what Director Hayes expected. Bring the flash drive. Hand over the codes. Let the government prosecute Hartwell through the proper channels. Narrator, but proper channels let her father die in silence. Proper channels told her that her grief was a scheduling problem. Elise internal monologue. They ignored him when he was alive. Now they want to use his death to boost their own case numbers. Narrator. She opened her laptop, typed one of the access keys into the cold interface of a cryptocurrency wallet. Narrator. Files loaded. Spreadsheets, transaction logs, names, dates, fake employee records, offshore wire transfers, each line a nail in someone's corporate coffin. Narrator. And as the evidence lit up the screen, Elise realized this wasn't just proof. It was leverage. Narrator. Low, powerful. Or she could make her own rules. Final beat. For the first time in her life, Elise Gardner didn't feel powerless. She felt dangerous. Voiceover. The office smelled like expensive ink and intimidation. Tall glass windows, clean steel, zero warmth. Victoria Cross didn't bother standing when Elise walked in. She didn't smile. She didn't offer coffee. She just looked interested. Victoria measured crisp. You're Elise Gardner. Elise, calm. I am, and I'm holding enough evidence to bury Hartwell Food Services. Narrator, no reaction, just a blink. Then Victoria folded her hands, leaned forward. Victoria, what do you want? Quiet, firm. 47 million, the exact amount they owe in back taxes. You'll get exclusive access to everything: files, wallets, timelines. You can hand it to prosecutors or use it to wipe Hartwell off the map. Narrator. Cool, tense. Victoria didn't say anything for a long time. Then she stood, walked to the window, thought, turned back around. Victoria. Why us? Why not the feds? Elise. Cold. Because justice doesn't always need a badge. Sometimes it needs a boardroom. Narrator. Final beat. They shook hands. No smiles, no small talk. Just war dressed in heels. Narrator voiceover. The contract was 26 pages long. Summit's legal team combed through every line like it was scripture. Elise, she didn't blink. Narrator. It wasn't about greed. It was about precision. Narrator. Slow, steady. 47 million. Not a cent more, not a cent less. The exact amount Hartwell owed in back taxes and stolen wages. By the end of the third hour, Victoria Cross leaned back, tapped her pen twice, and said, Victoria, you've got a deal. Narrator. Elise signed her name with a pen she borrowed from someone in a $2,000 suit. It didn't matter. What mattered was the sentence she left hanging in the room like a warning shot. Elise, quiet but lethal, justice costs exactly what they stole. Narrator, final beat, hook. They took everything from her. She took it back, with interest. Narrator voiceover. It was her final shift, but Elise didn't clock in. Narrator. Slow, deliberate. She walked through the diner door, not as a waitress, but as an executioner. Narrator. Croft was behind the register, counting bills like always, sneering, smug, his fingers greedy with stolen tips. Narrator. Elise walked up, silent. No tray, no apron. Just a folded sheet of paper in her hand. Elise, calm, steady. I have something for you. Croft didn't even look at her. Make it quick, we're busy. Narrator. She laid the paper on the counter face up. A transaction record from Summit Restaurant Group, $47 million. Narrator. Beat, Croft's eyes scanned it. Confusion, realization, then terror. Croft whispers, "What is this?" Elise, smiling lethal, "That's the receipt for selling your crimes to your biggest competitor." Narrator, final beat. His face went pale. His hand trembled. And in that moment, the man who denied her a week to bury her father was watching his own career lowered into a coffin. Narrator voiceover. It started at 9:03 a.m. By 9:07, 17 Hartwell locations were under federal lockdown. Narrator, pulse rising. Patrons screamed as agents in FBI windbreakers stormed in, badges flashing, folders slamming on counters, warrants in hand. In Kansas City, the regional manager was pulled from his morning meeting. In Chicago, the finance head tried to run. He didn't get far. Narrator, cold beat. By noon, 8 were in custody. By nightfall, the number doubled. Narrator, Croft Brennan was arrested during dinner rush, right behind the same register where he once told Elise, "Find coverage or don't come back." Narrator, now his hands were cuffed, his face smashed into Formica, and the camera phones didn't miss a second of it. Narrator, final beat. Justice didn't knock. It kicked the damn door open. The courtroom smelled like varnish and old fear. Narrator Croft Brennan sat at the defense table, a shadow of the man who once mocked Elise over burnt toast and short-staffed shifts. Sharp, he had no tie, no ring, no family in the audience, just a government-appointed lawyer and the weight of his own empire collapsing. Narrator, Elise took the stand. Prosecutor, state your name. Elise. Steady. Elise Gardner. Prosecutor. And your relation to the defendant, Elise? A beat, then firm. I worked under him until he told me my dying father wasn't his problem. Narrator, you could hear the oxygen leave the room. Narrator, Croft didn't look up. Couldn't. His wife had filed for divorce the week before. His assets frozen. His house repossessed. Narrator, when the verdict came in, he didn't flinch. 8 years. White collar, no parole, no leniency. Narrator, final beat. He once called her a burden. Now he was carrying the weight of a system she burned down around him. Narrator, some people build legacies with names on buildings. Elise Gardner built hers with a promise. Narrator, 6 months after the trial, she launched the Arlo Gardner Foundation, named for the man who taught her to fight quietly but hit with precision. Narrator, the mission was simple, but revolutionary. Narrator, to protect service workers, to offer legal aid to those too tired to fight, to take down companies who profited from silence. Narrator, within a year, her foundation had hired 37 former Hartwell employees, people who'd once served fries, now they served subpoenas. Narrator, proud rising. The Arlo Gardner Foundation filed 92 lawsuits in its first 18 months, won 71, settled 14, and gave back over $11 million in stolen wages. Narrator, Beat Elise didn't just burn a corrupt system down, she built a better one on the ashes. Narrator voiceover, the waitress they fired, she came back as their boss. Narrator voiceover, Elise Gardner rehired 112 former Hartwell employees. People tossed aside like trash now were legal analysts, whistleblower consultants, and outreach leaders. They didn't serve tables anymore. They served justice. Narrator. Pulse rising. With every case won, a worker reclaimed their dignity. A paycheck got restored. A bully lost their power. By year 3, the Arlo Gardner Foundation had filed lawsuits against 19 restaurant chains and won 17. Beat. Media outlets called her the waitress who crushed a corporation. Union leaders called her a movement in motion. Final line. Elise didn't just build a nonprofit. She ignited a revolution where justice wasn't just served, it was multiplied. Narrator voiceover. 6 years later, the letter came. Postmarked from a federal prison in Indiana. Handwritten. Unsteady. Narrator. It started with a name. Elise. Narrator. Quiet beat. Croft Brennan was 62 now. No job, no home. Just time and guilt. Narrator. Reading softly. I was wrong. About your father. About you. I hope someday you can forgive me. Narrator. Elise didn't cry. She didn't smile either. She simply folded the letter and placed it in the bottom drawer of her desk beneath her father's old calculator and the first grant check signed by the foundation. She didn't respond. Because she didn't need to. Some fires don't need matches, just memory, and justice already done. She didn't burn him with revenge. She buried him with a legacy that outlived them both. No one is born powerful, but everyone holds something stronger, the truth, the courage to act, and the memory of how they were treated. Elise didn't need wealth or status, just the legacy of a father who believed in her and the will to turn grief into justice. This story reminds us, when justice isn't given, it can be created. Never underestimate the voice of someone who was once silenced. And most of all, kindness builds legacy. Cruelty builds regret. If this story made you feel something, even for a second, don't just scroll away. Subscribe to the channel for more real, gripping, and powerful stories that remind us why we care and why we fight. Because sometimes it's not more information we need, it's more reminders that we still feel.